Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Distarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayadvaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivacharya अष्टोत्तर डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवाचार्य अष्टोत्तर डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवास आदि गौर की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोधाम की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। मायापुर नदी धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा मई जमुना मई की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेत भक्त की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Always Shiva and Gaura.
Jai Jai. Thank you so much, Mahesh Panditji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
And Welcome to everyone for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Monday, June 24th, 2024 in New York. And tonight we're picking up with Canto 3, Chapter 32, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. Kapila Dev is telling his mother who to speak to, who not to speak to. So far, we've heard the do-nots, and now we're going to start hearing who is a worthy recipient of everything he's been saying. And special thanks to Radhesha Ananda Prabhus and company for hosting Maharaj in Hawaii. And so glad Maharaj could be with us. Hare Krishna. And Panchatattva Prabhu will be starting us off with text number 41.
Hare Krishna. Invoke Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Chapter 32, Entanglement in Fruitive Activities, text 41. Shradhadanaya bhaktaya vinitayanu bhuteshu krita maitraya sushusha birataya cha. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and there is no purport for this verse, but if Guru Maharaj, if you would like to say something on this verse, otherwise I'll proceed to the next.
There's a lot here, actually. Let me just see. All right. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Miditam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Shapadantikam Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarani. All of these words are significant. Shradhanaya, Bhaktaya, Shradhana, what's touch Shradhana Munio Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya. One who has faith. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna, Anasuya, Shraddha. One who has faith is the right candidate for hearing the message of Krishna. Faith in Krishna and faith in the spiritual master. Yasya deve parabhakti yata devi tataguru. Tachayate katita yarta prakashante mahatmana. So Shradhanaya, Bhaktaya, it should be spoken to the devotees. Anasuyave, Prabhaksham Yanasuyave, Jnana Vijnana Sahitam. The message should be spoken, we heard earlier in the previous verse, not to the envious persons. And here, positively, to those who are anasuyave, non-envious. Bhuteshu Kritamaitraya, those who are kind friends to all living beings. And Shushusha Abhirataya Cha, and eager to render service. Service to the spiritual master, service to the previous acharyas, service to the mission of the personality of Godhead. They're the right people to whom these topics should be instructed. Anything more? Next verse, huh?
Next verse. Bahirjata viragaya santa chittaya diyatam namatsaraya shuchaye yasyaham prayasam priyaha. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Purport. In the beginning, no one can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional service. Here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory processes for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. To serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. On the advice of Akindra Prabhu, we'll break it up. We'll stop at the end of this first paragraph. Om Jnana-Timiranda Shagananda Salakaya Chakshur Umanitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the first sentence has a punch to it. One cannot expect that in the beginning of devotional service, one will be like immediately elevated to the highest position. We're practitioners in the beginning of Vaidhi Bhakti, regulative devotional service, that these, as described in the following sentence, are reformatory processes. The conditioned soul at the doorway of devotional service enters a process of purification, of reformation, according to the regulative principles of devotional service, mentioned here as chanting the holy name according to a certain counting method, engaging in worship of the deity, hearing from a realized person, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, living in a sacred place where, it's interestingly said, where devotional service is not disturbed, serving a Vaishnava, and so on. These are activities that give one entrance to the on the path of devotional service, so that one can become reformed, purified, free from offenses, and to become educated and clear on the process of devotional service itself. Just like when you study any subject matter, in order to appreciate what you're studying, you have to have certain qualifications. You have to be able to see clearly. You have to be able to focus. You have to be able to hear from your instructor. You have to be able to sit down patiently in a place where you can hear from your instructor without being disturbed, etc., etc. So in devotional service, there are also these stipulations that have to be followed if we want to make progress in a regular and uninterrupted fashion. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Great to hear it so far. Maharaj, did you want to say something on paragraph 1 here?
Yeah, the first thing is that Here, actually, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is glossing both verses, verse 42 and, 41 and 42. So here he's glossing Bhaktaya from the previous verse. This should be spoken to a devotee. So who is a devotee? Here he's he's making it clear that it's not that we have to find out the highest devotee and speak to him, but one who's willing to accept the process of devotional service. One who's willing to accept the process. In the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, there's 64 methods of devotional service, 64 processes. And these are the 5 most important: Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Seva, Bhagavatam, Brajvas. And these are highly potent, and these are the methods that form the core of Srila Prabhupada's program of Krishna consciousness. So this is a devotee. The science can be spoken to such a person. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Prabhin Krishna Prabhu asks in the chat, he just puts a phrase of Prabhupada's in quotes with a question mark after it. Certain counting method?
Yeah. Beads. That we have a mala of 108 beads, and there's a counting method. Otherwise, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would count on his fingers, so that's also a counting method. Even, I suppose, you could say that the clicker is a counting method. But the idea is that one should chant a certain number of rounds a day of the Maha Mantra, especially the initiated devotees. There's a prescription, 16 rounds a day. That's the certain counting method.
I had a question, or maybe an observation perhaps you could speak to, Maharaj. And Panchatattva Prabhu spoke to this a little already. The very first sentence of the purport also struck me in the beginning. No one can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional service. And thinking back on some history and seeing various devotees coming into Krishna consciousness, and myself as well, I find it odd how there is a tendency among beginning practitioners of bhakti yoga to imagine somehow that simply because they've found the path, that they've found the end of the path, and that they are perhaps destined to or already advanced and they've just yet to discover it, Whereas if you want to become a downhill skier, you don't arrive at day 1 of training thinking, oh boy, I'm Olympic grade. So I was wondering why is that tendency there for beginners in bhakti to think or imagine sometimes that they've really got it together when they've only just found the path, as you say.
Beginner's enthusiasm. And one thing is, it's a gift from Krishna. We're encouraged. We get some encouragement in the beginning. I can do this. If we were told on day 1 that it's very difficult, that purifying the heart is a long process and so on, we'd all turn back at the gates, say, let me find something easier, let me find something quicker. So we're given some enthusiasm in the beginning. Yes, you can do this. And probably within 6 months, you'll be a pure devotee. So there we are. At first, we have that initial confidence that it's very easy. I can attain perfection very quickly. And then over time, we perhaps become more reserved in our estimation of ourselves and what we can achieve. And we become more, as we become more conversant with the science. But then on the other hand, there's a greater appreciation. In the beginning, we don't really know much about what we're expecting to achieve. But as we go along, we get a greater appreciation. And so in different ways, we're encouraged. At first, perhaps, well, I'll achieve the perfection very quickly. But then as we go on, we're doing these 5 things. We're associating with devotees. We're chanting the holy name. We're hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're serving the deity. We're living in a sacred place. So we're becoming purified so that we can become elevated gradually to the highest stage. Gradually.
Thank you very much. And Saraswati Mata has a question. Param Puja Maharaj, you had once stated a devotee who took his initiation the same time as you had a motivation to apply this Bhakti Marg teachings toward an academic project, but still this devotee was admitted into Bhakti. So how to understand this acceptance for those who may not be such a serious student or disciple of the Guru?
Well, one is we give people the benefit of the doubt. We try to, Prabhupada particularly in those days was liberal and giving people the opportunity. I'm sure if this person had said, Swamiji, I'm not really interested at all in your teachings, and I have no faith in Krishna. I'm just here to fulfill some academic requirements so that I can earn a degree. I suspect that Prabhupada would have told him to get lost, or that is to say, would have been reluctant to initiate him. But this is, Prabhupada mentions that we were reading that in a previous purport, I think, that people come with mixed motives. People come with mixed motives. And sometimes what Prabhupada referred to, if not in so many words, is insincere. We heard that from the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also said the same thing. You're deceiving me. You're trying to deceive me. So devotees still are so kind that even though someone may have mixed motives, someone may not be so sincere, in the beginning we try to give everyone a chance. We try to give everyone a chance. So Prabhupada gave that young man a chance, and he could have used it and attained great spiritual benefit. Instead, he misused it and attained nothing. That choice is always with us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Panchatattva Prabhu points out the qualification of being methodically enthusiastic on the path. And so we can continue with the purport, I think, yes?
One must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. He should not be unnecessarily envious of his godbrothers. Rather, if a godbrother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master. And one should be happy to see such godbrothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work, for it is the way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. The word Sushusha Birataya indicates a person who faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. One should give personal service and all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master. A devotee who does so is also a bona fide candidate for taking this instruction. The word Bahirjata Viragaya means a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Such a person must be non-envious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of the human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word Suchaye means one who is cleansed both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, or Vishnu, constantly. So again, as Guru Maharaj has pointed out, Srila Prabhupada is glossing these words from these. This is parsing these words from the verses and the verses themselves. It's interesting. Prabhupada starts out here speaking to the point that the disciple is supposed to offer necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master and not be unnecessarily envious of his god brothers. This is kind of along the lines of Sadachar or Vaishnav etiquette, but also a kind of a both external and internal behavior, mentality. Our backgrounds are typically steeped in envy. And that envy takes place either individually or by group or by country. The world is shot through with this poisonous, envious mentality. And a devotee has to get purified of this type of consciousness. We hear that in the spiritual world, when someone offers some wonderful service to Krishna or to other Vaishnavas, the mood is, or other associates of the Lord, the mood is there that everyone is appreciative, not wanting to tear down or minimize that person's service or offering. But in the material world, as has been our habit since time immemorial, we want to be in the center, and that can take subtle forms, even in terms of our relationships to other devotees. So we have to be very careful to avoid this kind of mistake. And I think, as is described here, in order to make that really stick in the mind, Prabhupada has offered this formula. If a godbrother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to this spiritual master. And one should be happy to see such godbrothers advance in Krishna consciousness. And then it's we hear about how devotees have to be very kind to the general public, because they have, even early on, have been privileged to receive this mercy, devotional service, which is, as Prabhupada says, the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. And Prabhupada offers that as true humanitarian work, sharing Krishna consciousness with the public, with conditioned souls. Because, as Srila Prabhupada says, it's the only way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. and other terms are glossed here, Sushrusha Birotaya, and faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. This is the etiquette of this is the proper behavior of a disciple towards a spiritual master. He or she should find all kinds of ways, all kinds of comforts and services to please the spiritual master. What is pleasing to Guru? Not as what maybe I count in my mind as pleasing, what I would think would be pleasing, but what the spiritual master has asked for or has instructed. What in essence, the spiritual master is the personality of servant or Godhead. So by this service, we come to understand what devotional service really means. Service, well, ultimately, but service which is pleasing to Krishna. And Prabhupada says that a devotee who takes this mood, giving personal service, all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master, faithfully engaging in the spiritual master's service, that person is a bona fide candidate for taking the instructions here. The next term is Bahir Jata Viragaya, a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. So there's the material propensities on the externally active platform, but there's also what's going on in the mind. One has to be careful on both fronts. And then non-enviousness towards other living entities and thinking of their welfare, which has already been described by Srila Prabhupada as sharing Krishna consciousness with the general public. And that goes also towards the non-human living entities. There's that famous episode that Govinda Dasi describes where she was sitting with Srila Prabhupada and there was some slug or something moving, leaving its slimy trail as it moved across the pavement in front of them where they were seated. And Prabhupada said to Govinda Dasi with a great deal of compassion, chant Hare Krishna to the poor creature. So that kind of mood towards other living entities is wanted. And then Suchaya, cleansed both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Panchatattva Prabhu. Maharaj?
Yeah, this is a constellation of good qualities a devotee has. All the good qualities of demigods. So here they go together, Shradhanaya, Vinitaya, to be faithful and respectful. Vinit means humble, modest, respectful. Bruyu snigdhasya shishyasya, guruve gurumapyuta. The Sukha Goswami. So you've received all the blessings meant for a confidential disciple because you're very humble and meek. So Vinitaya, Bhaktaya, and Anasuyave, not envious of the spiritual master. We saw that during Prabhupada's time. Prabhupada sometimes would detect that a disciple was envious of Prabhupada's position. And that's, of course, disastrous for devotional service. Or one may be envious of one's godbrothers. Why should they be favored? Why should they be considered more advanced than I am, or actually be more advanced than I am? So instead of being happy to see someone advanced or someone recognized or someone engaged in service, one becomes envious. Why wasn't it me? Why not me? So that's envy, and that's very destructive. And it takes the form, of course, of criticism. One criticizes those of whom one is envious to try to drag them down. So Anasuyave, non-envious, and Shrushrusha Abhirataya, the same sort of qualification, to be very faithful, to be very, yes, very faithful, very willing to hear, eager to render service. These are the qualities that one hopes for in a disciple: to be humble, to be meek, to be eager to serve, to be non-envious, to be friendly to others, or merciful to others. These are some of the good qualities found in the devotee. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. And Saraswati Mata brings up a particular sort of pathology that we see sometimes. Not to shy away from bringing up difficult topics, but sometimes we see how enthusiastic a devotee is to bring someone to Krishna consciousness. But if that new devotee makes rapid advancement, then the devotee that helped this new devotee becomes insecure, resentful, or even envious, including trying to bring the new devotee down physically or subtly. So, how to respond to this contradictory behavior?
How to respond to it? How does who respond to it? In any case, generally we don't find this. Generally we find that if we bring someone to Krishna consciousness and he quickly becomes advanced, we become happy that this person became quickly Krishna conscious. Why should we be unhappy? But sometimes it's so found, yes, that someone is like that, because we're not yet where we should be. What to say? New devotee. How should a new devotee respond?
No, she's answering your question. That it's the one who's
Yeah, who's responding? The new devotee? That's the question. I still don't. A new devotee responds, of course, if he's quickly advanced, then he's humble. All right, I'm being criticized, or I'm being. The new devotee responds with, we hope, with tolerance, with if he's quickly becoming advanced, then he tolerates. He tolerates. All right, this is good for me. In the beginning, I'm getting, what's the word? Strict training. My false ego is being pounded. Good for me. He doesn't retaliate. Why are you keeping me down? First you brought me here, now you're keeping me down. He appreciates. It's good for me. I'm new. And after some time also seeing the sincerity of such a devotee, the spiritual master or the person who brought him may become happy to just see how he's tolerating, how he's making progress despite all difficulties. And that's sort of a tendency. In the beginning, some newcomer, we give him the pots to wash. We give him we figure he's not very qualified for anything. But after some time, when we see, he's really good, then we become keen. All right, give him more service, appreciate. At least we should hope that that's what will happen. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was just reading something in the Lilamrita that I'm reminded of by Prabhupada's statement here. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. Prabhupada was walking with some disciples, and one of them was making a list of all the negative symptoms of Kali Yuga that he's seeing. And Prabhupada just stopped and looked at him and said, but you still have to try to save these people.
Hmm.
Shall we continue?
Yes. The word diyatam means that knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered by the spiritual master. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way so that in the future, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his life. In these two verses, the qualities of a devotee are fully explained. One who has actually developed all the qualities listed in these verses is already elevated to the post of a devotee. If one has not developed all these qualities, he still has to follow these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. So we've been hearing over this series of verses who is fit to be instructed and who is not. And we are getting a kind of a summary treatment here on the subject. And fortunately for some of us in Krishna consciousness, and certainly by the special mercy of empowered devotees such as Srila Prabhupada, when he established this movement, he would sometimes seem to accept persons who were just the mere glimmer of a hope of a devotee. They were just kind of sometimes even marginally interested, but there was some interest there. There was a spark to fan. There was something there, and Srila Prabhupada went to extraordinary lengths to fan those sparks, and so have his disciples. And we are left at the end of this purport with a reminder. If we read these qualities of a devotee and find ourselves insufficient, then we have some work to do. We have to fulfill these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Maharaj.
Yasyaham prayasam priyaha. The Lord speaks of a devotee for whom I'm the most dear. How does Prabhupada say it? More dear than anything. More dear than anything. This is the fortunate position of a devotee, to think that there's no one more dear to Krishna, nothing more dear to me than Krishna. Such a person is an eligible candidate for making swift spiritual advancement. And similarly, what is that term? Bahirjata vairagya, viragaya. Detached to outside things that are outside of Krishna consciousness. So when one gets that taste for serving Krishna, then he becomes detached from those things. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. And Radhesha Prabhu posts jumping off of the word diyatam. Diyatam, diyatam karno, niyatang, niyatang vachaha, giyatam, giyatam nityam, harer namaiva kevalam. It should be heard again and again with one's ears. It should be uttered over and over with one's voice. It should be perpetually sung and sung anew. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. Is that Kevalastikam?
Yes.
Prabhin Krishna Prabhu asks, what if someone unworthy is initiated for giving him a chance or to take risks for furthering the movement?
Well, nature of chances that it can go either way. You lose some and you win some. You're taking the up. Prabhupada did that. He initiated people. So many of them left, but some stayed and did tremendous service, spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So that's what happens. You take a chance and you don't really know, but in some cases, some people will be, well, at least take it seriously enough to follow, and others will make it their life and soul. So for that, it seems Prabhupada thought it was worth taking the risk. All right, we'll have some unqualified people, but what can we do? Some qualified men will come. Or some unqualified, but they'll become qualified. That's really the hope. In the beginning, everyone is more or less unqualified. But if they stick sincerely to the service of the spiritual master, if they try to hear nicely, chant nicely, they can go from not very promising to the highest stage of Krishna consciousness.
Saraswati Mata says, some disciples may know they have unlimited dirty things in the heart, so it can be hard to remain positive at all times too.
Hard to remain. Well, we won't be positive at all times. Sometimes we'll feel discouraged. Sometimes we'll feel a little negative. But if we stick to the process, then the dirty things will be cleansed, Chaita Darpana Marjana, and we'll come to the point. It's not that everyone who comes, we all feel, yes, always positive. Sometimes we feel hopeless. Sometimes we feel like it's just too hard. But if we stick to it, just in any subject, music student, in the beginning seems, perhaps it seems so really easy, then he finds out it's hard. Then he's sometimes discouraged and so on. But if he sticks to it, that's the nature of practice. If we stick to it, it will come to the point. It's unrealistic to expect that we'll always be positive all the time. Sometimes there'll be discouragement, there'll be doubt, there'll be problems, there'll be so many things. But if we stick to it, stane stita shruti gatam tanuvam manopir, and then the result will come. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Radesha Prabhu posts an excerpt from purport to 8th Canto, Chapter 4, Text 15. A devotee sometimes accepts a sinful person as his disciple, and to counteract the sinful reactions he accepts from the disciple, he has to see a bad dream. Nonetheless, the spiritual master is so kind that in spite of having bad dreams due to the sinful disciple, he accepts this troublesome business for the deliverance of the victims of Kali Yuga. After initiation, therefore, a disciple should be extremely careful not to commit again any sinful act that might cause difficulties for himself and the spiritual master.
Please follow. You can hear Prabhupada. Please follow. Please, please follow. The spiritual master goes through so much trouble to save us. You should just try to follow and serve.
Saraswati Mata says, thank you so much, Maharaj, for encouraging and blessing us so we don't always feel like hopeless cases. And Panchatattva Prabhu quotes from Prabhupada. Would you mind reading that quote, Prabhu? And then maybe we can just finish the last verse in the chapter and see if we have time for some more.
Yeah, this is from his piece, The Universal Teacher. I believe this was submitted to Gaudiya Math. Personally, I have no hope for any direct service for the coming course of births of the sojourn of my life, but I'm confident that someday or other I shall be delivered from this mire of delusion in which I am at present so deeply sunk. Therefore, let me with all my earnestness pray at the lotus feet of my divine master to allow me to suffer the lot for which I'm destined, due to my past misdoings, but to let me have this power of recollection, that I'm nothing but a tiny servant of the Almighty Absolute Godhead, realized through the unflinching mercy of my divine master. Let me therefore bow down at his lotus feet with all the humility at my command.
Thank you, Prabhu. And would you like to read our last verse? Because it seems like that's a fitting end for our night's discussion.
Sure. Yaidam shinuyat amba shraddhaya purusha sakrit yuvabidat, yuvabidatte machchita sohyeti padaving chame. Anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 32nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities.
Very, very encouraging verse.
Yeah. Guru Maharaj, would you like to make some comment on this extraordinary statement?
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary is really nice.
Wonderful.
Should I read it?
Oh, I can read that, Maharaj. He says,
Okay.
I'll read Bhanu Swami's translation of the verse as well. O Mother, that person who hears this topic once with faith, or who utters this topic, concentrating his mind on me, certainly attains the place where my feet rest. In the commentary, what to speak of the good fortune for the performers of these actions? To hear about the good fortune that arises just from hearing and chanting about this topic. Fixing his mind on me, matchita, he attains the place where my feet rest, adavim.
So this topic of devotional service, even if we just hear about it, we're sure to go back to God. If we just talk about it and hear about it, to say nothing of doing it. So the process is so exalted and so capable of giving good fortune that if we just hear these topics, just hear and repeat, such a great achievement can be there. Eti padavim chame. He attains my abode, he attains my lotus feet. The place where my feet rest, padavim. That place the devotee can achieve.
Rabin Krishna Prabhu asks, since no one can say who would continue, everyone can be considered unworthy, some more, some less. So a spiritual master can seek many of these unworthy disciples for the mission?
Prabhupada did that. He one can go either way. We hear that who was it? Lokanath Goswami only accepted one, but Prabhupada was so liberal, you can say, so merciful, and also from another point of view, so determined to accomplish something for his spiritual master that he was willing to take the risk. If he hadn't, nothing would have gone. You know, what kind of people was Krishna sending in the beginning? Not the most highly cultured, Brahminical candidates. But Prabhupada just took it. All right, these are the people. Let's give them Krishna consciousness and hope that something takes. Hope that some of them will take it seriously. Patient and liberal or magnanimous, and willing to tolerate the trouble and inconvenience and whatever else might accrue from dealing with people and accepting people who were not so greatly qualified. Prabhupada did it. I remember, in fact, when Prabhupada disappeared and the ceremony was there to put his body into samadhi, there was the last speaker was invited to speak was a godbrother of Srila Prabhupada's, and he made some rather unfortunate dismissive remarks, and said something to the effect that I also could have had many disciples if I had been willing to accept hippies. That was sort of the purport of what he said. And it encapsulates the actual situation. That yes, if you'd been so broad-minded and so determined and so keen to carry out the order of your spiritual master and so willing to undergo personal inconvenience, you could have had many disciples also. Instead, you did whatever little bit you did, and you're just like a footnote to history. You're just like a footnote to history. You're not the person who got the blessings of your spiritual master or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. You didn't get that. But the person who was willing to undergo any amount of trouble and accept any kind of difficulty for Guru and Gauranga, he's the person who's now glorified throughout the world.
Jai, Raveen Krishna Prabhu says, thank you very much. And it's time for Kirtan. Mahesh Panditji, would you like to appoint our Kirtan leader, or do you have an on-site band, Maharaj?
I don't really have a band. I have a one-man band. Pradesha wants to chant, otherwise, carry on.
Someone can jump right in there.
All right, I'll chant.
Oh, great.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Punaman Supariprajukacharya Ashto Tarasata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundikidi Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamanamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj, and thank you, Radhesha, for the kirtan. Thank you, Mahesh Prabhu, for the opening kirtan. Thank you, Panchatattva, for all your reading.
Thank you to all.
Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.